everybody. Welcome to the Crigler Show. I have a wonderful guest with me today. I don't know if you know him. This is Clifton Duncan. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, what's going on, Adam? Thanks for having me. And hello, friends out there.
So I met Clifton when he was doing the Timcast show. What was this? 4 or 5 months ago now? It's been a while.
Yeah,
Last
January,
months?
February. Yeah, I don't even remember anymore. It's unbelievable.
What is time, right, Clifton?
Well, we
Man,
can get into that, Adam.
what's up? We can get into that.
What is time?
What is time? Well, it's relative.
Well, there is that.
Yeah. So, we have both our own red pill journeys. Mine was very public.
Very rapid too.
I don't know if it was rapid. People actually say that, but I think my position was already I was already there. I was already ready to pay attention. I feel like I knew a lot of the information. I felt like I was already being lied to. I didn't trust the government before I became red pilled, as they say,
Right.
and it just kind of, it clicked into place it was more like, oh, the curtain got pulled back. And I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't really a surprise. This all makes sense to me, so
Right.
it wasn't new. What about you? Were you were a default Democrat? Is it safe to assume?
Yeah. What did I don't know if you and your viewers know who Evan Sayet is, but he gave a great speech for the for the Heritage Foundation some years ago.
Okay.
And anybody could look it up. It's actually a really, really good speech. I don't agree with quite everything or all of his assessments, but he the speech came to be known as like the sort of what is it? The unified theory of liberalism or whatever it is. But basically, he said maybe it was Andrew Breitbart who said a default factory setting is for people to have this like liberal worldview.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, that's sort of what I subscribed to. I hadn't thought about it that much. It's just that, and I think what's so insidious about it is that people become so shielded because I think of the typical day in the life of, maybe your average American teenager. They get up in the morning, they go to school, and their teachers are talking about all this stuff from one specific point of view. Their favorite rock stars, singers, athletes, they're espousing this particular point of view. They get on social media and, as I call them, the reality cartel, and they are forcing a particular sort of view, a point of view on people.
Yeah.
They watch the news if they watch the news, and that also with some obvious exceptions are also putting forth this kind of opinion. So the music we listen to, the culture around us, we're just embedded in this idea that there's only one way to view the world, only one thing works. And once you break out of that, you can't go back in. And I think for me, I think my main moment, and a lot of people don't really understand this, and it had been building gradually just because of personal changes I was making. But I think the whole Gamergate fiasco in August of 2014, when I remember the day exactly when it all broke, and I just so happened to be in the right place at the right time to watch it unfold, because originally it was just it was basically a sex scandal and internet drama. And I was like, ooh, this is really interesting and fascinating. But then it expanded and it expanded and it became so much more than that.
Yeah.
And people tried to kind of downplay it and say, well, it's just video games. Who cares? And it's like, yes, exactly. It's just video games. So why, if it's just video games, am I being subjected to these op-eds who are saying, talking about racism and sexism and marginalized people and how, men are toxic and yada, yada, yada. So then all the sort of hallmarks that typify and characterize I honestly don't even know what to refer to it as, but I guess the social justice sort of standard operating procedures or protocols were in play. And one of them that got to me the most was the suppression of any kind of discussion, no matter how reasoned, no matter how polite, no matter how rational. If you asked about this on any kind of message boards dealing with gaming, even though it was a big thing, you got banned, you got your account suspended. The moderators just went kind of crazy. And then as the story began to unfold and you saw these journalists who were colluding with each other to put forth a particular narrative and also to gatekeep certain stories to ensure that they did not reach the mainstream. And on top of all of that, there was this this progressive, quote unquote, whenever I say progressive, I always just presume I'm using air quotes.
Okay.
This progressive tendency to whenever there is a minority, it could be a racial minority or a sexual minority,
Okay.
or a perceived oppressed group such as women, whenever they would say, no, I actually agree with what these people are saying. Like I don't need to read a review of a game and it doesn't need to be a commentary on the state of our society. Are the graphics good? Does it play well?
Does the story like make sense?
Is it a fun game? Is it a great story? Is it basically a great experience as a gamer? And if it is, then no one cares. But anyone who said that, we were ignored. I mean, there was a whole hashtag, not your shield, but we were ignored. We were dismissed. And I think what a big moment for me was realizing that there's only one kind of narrative allowed. And I would read these stories about how Gamergate was this right-wing hate campaign fueled by angry white men of the right wing who were just obsessed with getting women out of video game development. And I'm like, that's just a lie. And then I would get into these arguments with people on Facebook who were talking about this. I mean, it just the story began to spiral out of control, and I'm here being like actually knowing what the issues are and what it's about, being lectured to by people who have no idea. They've only swallowed what's been reported on it and what continues to be reported on it to this day.
Man,
and so that was a big wake up moment for me. But I mean, I think even before then, I begun kind of going down the rabbit hole. I mean, part of it was just, I started lifting weights for one, and I noticed that for some reason I was getting more attention from the opposite sex, and but I was always told that women wanted nice guys who treated them well and were just were their friends, and so a lot of. And just embracing more masculine energy and activities. I got more work as an actor, to be frank, but the changes I began to see in my life, the way that my values shifted, the way that my mind began to shift, I began to feel increasingly that I just didn't really belong. I felt more alienated from the entertainment industry in a lot of ways. So I just began to kind of shut down. And I wouldn't get into any sort of deep conversations. Oftentimes you're in rehearsal studios and you're going over the script. You're trying to work out different beats and story moments. You're discussing character. You're discussing, where we want the scene to go in collaboration with the director and the other actors and the writer if they're alive. And you just kind of learn to shut your mouth and not really offer your true opinions, which could provide some texture for a scene or set people's ideas off in a different direction. And you just hear people say things, particularly during the Trump era. People just had complete meltdowns. And I think that was another kind of step for me off the quote unquote plantation, so to speak, where I just said, there's clearly a split between what these people my professional colleagues believe is happening and what's actually happening on the ground. I mean, one of my favorite examples was a play that I was doing around election time in Hartford, Connecticut, where, we were doing this play and we had a barber that we would go to help, shape us up for the plays. And there was a black man, a son of a Jamaican farmer who apparently had like maybe a third grade education, but he knew how to kind of do math and work hard. So he was able to provide for his family and, move to the States and everything. And this was the first person that ever told me in person that he was voting for Donald Trump. This is a black man, and his friend sitting, a few feet away is just nodding and smiling. And this barber, his whole concern, he was a multiple business owner, and it was purely economic. And then I would go lift weights at the YMCA near where we were rehearsing, and the white guys there, they were talking about jobs and the market. So there were purely economic concerns at play for a lot of people. But then I would go into rehearsal and it was all about, well, racism this and, fascism that. And I said, there's something else that's going on here, something else going
Yeah.
on here. And then I had an epiphany one night. I was kind of stoned, and walking around this apartment that I was staying in, and I had this moment where I said, "Oh my God, the Democratic Party in general, and maybe even the left in a broader sense, they do not want to acknowledge me. I'm invisible to them because I'm of no use to them, because I'm not easily manipulable by all of their racial pot stirring."
Yep.
And once I really realized that, look, that they could basically care less whether I lived or died, because I don't go along with the narrative. That was sort of a big breaking moment for me. Like, you can't be self-possessed, you can't be happy, you can't be self-actualized as a minority, and also be a diehard Democrat now, because they are enthralled. They are maybe even ensorcelled, one might say, by this ideology that says that all people who are not white or fair-skinned are living under the constant oppression and fear and threat of being harassed and held down by fair-skinned people. I'm like, like, these people ain't you. I mean, no offense, Adam, but you ain't superior to me. You know what I mean?
I believe it.
I tell people,
And you're not superior to me. No one is.
Man. Like, you take people on an individual basis. It's like, are you cool? Are you not? Are you good at your job? Do you have something to offer? Like,
Meritocracy.
do we have like, shared personal interests, and so on and
Right.
so forth. And that's how I evaluate things. And part of it, I'm a military brat. My mom was in the Army, so I spent a lot of my formative years in Western Europe. So, I mean, I had friends who were British, French, Swedish, Dutch, Greek, Turkish, as well as American. So I had and I never had problems with anybody. My barber was some weird redheaded, ginger French dude, who just cut my hair, 10 years old. So I never had any sort of compunction about race. So then I get here to America, and especially after I became an actor.
Yeah.
My race became a really big deal, and I was sort of forced to think about it in a way that I hadn't before. Even though, I mean, as a Black person, you sort of who grows up in America, it's very, very difficult, for reasons that I've explained before, to avoid this sort of I would call it indoctrination or programming, in terms of like, this is how America is for you as a Black person, and you have to deal with all these oppressive forces, and the world is out to get you. It took me a long time to unlearn that kind of mindset. It was a lovely ex-girlfriend of mine who helped me see that. But
that's great. It does feel like it's coming from one direction too. Like the Democrats, you said, like there's this, almost comatose that they put over their voters. Like, you must believe this, or you can't be a Democrat. You have to have this virtuous feeling of, that you're the one who's oppressed. And it feels like the oppression that I've seen, now that I've really been paying attention, because, I lived my own life. I really focused on me most of my life. And, now I'm looking out, and I'm seeing racism and oppression from Democrats, especially to someone like you, who's like, look, I'm a free thinker. I'm not going to go along with whatever you think I should think. I'm going to do me because of my own lived experience that I've lived, and I know myself. You can't tell me how I feel. And they're like, well, this guy's a problem. He's not listening to our game of telephone, which all of these other people, like when you were talking about Gamergate, it just felt like you can apply that to almost every situation. The truth of what's going on. It's like, I've been watching actually what's happening with the bills and, with Trump last year, and then watching how the media spins it all, and then watching how the people who hate Trump blindly, just as an example, specifically Trump, will just the talking heads points, and they're like, well, I'm going to repeat these talking head points. And I'm like, all right, well, here's this logical explanation on why you're wrong. And they're like, I don't care. You're evil.
I have a story to back that up, and this is why I sort of, I won't say that I can't get too mad, but, I think that people who used to be on their side of the aisle end up becoming some of the harshest critics, because they understand. I mean, I understand where the woke the woke brigade, so to speak, is coming from. Although I kind of feel like woke
Yeah.
is becoming an overused kind of buzzword, but they use it themselves to describe
True.
themselves unironically.
I know.
So, forget it.
It's
But
so bad.
there was one. This was right after Barack Obama had won the Nobel Peace Prize, which he made good on by
Right.
bombing the crap out of Libya, North Africa, and the Middle East.
Yeah.
And presiding
Among
over,
other places.
over a kill list, and Fast and Furious. We can go on about that. Scandal-free
Yeah.
presidency, guys. Scandal-free presidency. But somebody had the audacity to point out to me on Facebook that Obama had not done anything to warrant winning a Nobel Prize. I mean, they literally just gave it to him.
True.
And
they gave it to him because he was a black president.
Right. And it's what he symbolized, I guess. But at the time, someone pointed out to me that he hadn't done anything, and that's one of the reasons I love the NPC meme so much is it just seems so apt, so accurate. And I remember having that moment, where I read that comment, and the like buffering signal appeared in front of my head, and I just typed back, something snarky like "haha, you're just a hater," and like closed the computer and walked away, never replied to it. I didn't attempt to engage at all with the truth, the simple truth of what this person said. Yep. And part of the thing is, it's enough for these people to feel clever, to be snarky, to feel morally superior.
Yep.
But it's not important to them to be correct.
True. And it's their whole purpose in life. Their whole purpose is to be almost a foot soldier for Democrats, and just whatever comes into their brain, they're like, all right, that's our new talking points, guys. Come on, let's go. Yeah.
And you see it deployed, especially on social media. It's like, I can tell. I mean, I remember during the, the controversy over the like Georgia's voting bill, and people were talking about water this and water that. I'm like, it's clear you've been told to say that. And I'm so cynical at this point that, I'm willing to bet money that most of the people criticizing this thing have not even read the damn bill.
Yeah,
so they have no idea what we're talking about. And I don't fault people on the ground, your regular person who like maybe signs up for some nonprofit organization or for some volunteer organization, or who says, or that when they chant Black Lives Matter, they think that the organization and the political movement actually cares about Black people. That is an easily made mistake, and it's forgivable. But I think once you get to people that are organizing these things, some of these leaders, some of these activists, these pundits, politicians, I don't have as much respect and regard for them, when I think that their motives should absolutely be questioned. But part of the problem, it's like this sort of mastery of what's going on the left is, this mastery of language, for one thing, to even the slogan Black Lives Matter, just as an example, or masks work. They take things that are technically true, and then if you don't, and if you like that could be construed as true, or that people would agree with, or that it's plausible to agree with. And if you disagree with any of that or try to challenge any of that, then they can just go back and say, well, what, you don't think that Black Lives Matter? You don't think that masks work? And it's like, no.
You're not you're not anti-fascist? It's like, come on.
But they also live in a reality. And this is me, I just got off the phone with a friend of mine that I went to grad school with. And I went to a very, very elite training conservatory for actors. And it's nice to connect with somebody that has the same kind of training background that I do, that has the same kind of appetites, hunger, and aesthetics that I do, and wants and demands the same kind of depth and richness from the work that I do. And we were just talking about how, these people are in their quest for safety, and their quest for ideological conformity. It's really making their worldview so shallow, and as a result, their work is shallow. And so they look for things, they try to create things that are timely, but they're not timeless. And I think, I thought about, I brought up the example to him of Elia Kazan's On the Waterfront. It's a classic film, but it's a film that he made at a time as a response to the McCarthyist era, where he was, demonized for ratting out his friends as members of the Communist Party. So he made something that was very much of the time and of something that happened to him, but it remains timeless. You can go back because it's a movie about Marlon Brando's character standing up for what is right and standing up for his own personal truth. I mean, and he's literally being bullied and threatened and beaten at the end of the film, but he still stands his ground. And so we want stories of people like that. We want stories, these heroic stories. I mean, I was reading Aristotle's Poetics recently, just to kind of go back to the roots of all of this, and it was so refreshing to see this text from thousands of years ago, where Aristotle is like laying things out and saying, these are the elements that compose a great story, and these kinds of elements need to be in place. He's trying to kind of codify what creates successful drama. He called it tragedy, he called it poetry, but and laying out all these stories, and it was always audience focused. What do you want the audience to feel? How do you want them to feel? How do you want to elicit laughter? How do you want to elicit tears? How do you want to create this tragic kind of situation that will move an audience and get your point across? And here's playwrights that do it well. Here's others that don't do it well. And I think today that there's so much of a focus on there's a great essay by a guy named Albert Maltz that was written back in 1946 called "What Shall We Ask of Writers?" I keep talking about this thing lately, and he's talking about he's a left-wing writer assailing left-wing art, fiction and writing and drama, and he's saying and criticism, honestly, and he's saying that these people are using art as a weapon, and what that is doing is that it's creating artists who are shallow, who never mature, because they're always just trying to create art not to serve as a mirror to the human condition, which is what our job really is. All the prettiness and the ugliness of it. They are trying to create what Maltz calls political leaflets that will please their friends and peers and colleagues, and that's what they care about. They don't care about the audience, and that's one of the
or just make the money, really, also.
Right, but even then, you can have. I think Marvel just demonstrated that you can go for something that's popular entertainment, but at the end of the day, what those movies got right, and what the DC movies did not get quite right, is that we fell in love with the people behind the costumes, the people underneath the costumes. It's really cool that Tony Stark is Iron Man. It's really cool that Steve Rogers is a super soldier. It's really cool that Spider-Man, is Spider-Man, that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But at the end of the day, Steve Rogers is a guy who's out of his own time in a world that he doesn't really understand completely, and that he is becoming rapidly disillusioned with, as he's seeing some of the same kind of corruption and government overreach, so to speak. I mean, Captain America: Winter Soldier, that was about a big question at the center of that movie, was about freedom versus security, which is what we're looking at right now. And, Tony Stark has this great emotional arc where he starts out as a complete self-absorbed, narcissistic a-hole, but he becomes someone who is selfless. He makes the ultimate sacrifice, which in the first Avengers film, Steve Rogers said he would never do. What a great heroic journey and character development. We care about Peter Parker because he's a kid from Queens, being played by a British actor, unfortunately. But but he's a kid just trying to find his way in the world and do the right thing, and dealing with all kinds of insecurities that come along with that. So that's what we fall in love with. We fall in love with the human beings who happen to have really cool powers. And I think that's what Marvel did. And the Russo brothers especially, they really just perfected the art of we're going to draw these human characters with human motivations. We're going to punctuate it with some humor, but also, I mean, even Thanos, his connection with his daughter, they at least try to invest some humanity in these things. And I think,
and the fact that he wasn't doing it just to kill people. He truly thought that he was doing what was best for the universe. I mean, obviously killing half of the universe is, some can argue, is not the best for the universe, but
it's like, bro, you have these massive gyms. Why don't you just make more stuff for everybody?
Good point. Here's another universe. Boom. Half of you go live in that one.
Exactly. He could have done that, but then it wouldn't have been quite as compelling a villain.
Yeah, true. Wow. But, I mean, the Hollywood in general, man. I mean, that's kind of what the name of the segment that I put on there is Hollywood is Dead, just because it feels like, sure, we have those Marvel movies as an example of they're okay, but then not all of them are necessarily okay. Now, like you have Black Widow. Now I haven't seen it yet, but there's all this controversy about it because now suddenly it's sexist for her to be a Black Widow. That actually the whole thing that they do is to seduce men to get information from them. That was kind of like or Scarlet. Or wait, no, was it Black Widow? It is Black Widow, right? Am I thinking the
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's now Disney dropped her because she's suing Disney. That's a whole thing that's going on. But this whole woke Hollywood culture. I mean, you are an actor. I'm sure that you see it more than anyone else in the industry.
Well, it's very difficult, and for the longest time, I tried to think about how really it's been difficult for me to summarize, just in terms of just how my race has impacted my career. I mean, I'm one of these people who thinks that terms like Black actor are really annoying because sort of like white rapper or strong woman, like the presumptions or presuppositions underneath the phrase really irk me.
Yeah,
but
understandably so.
But there's a weird thing that's happening right now where it used to be we would complain about, if you go back to movies from the 80s like Hollywood Shuffle, they really satirize this stuff. It's really, really great if you haven't seen it. But the complaint was that the only Black people that you see, especially Black men, in Hollywood and on film, with some exceptions, we're playing drug dealers and criminals and yada, yada, yada. But now there's this weird thing happening where ironically, because they're trying to be inclusive as possible, they're also making things as safe as possible.
Okay.
And I think that or you're sort of forced to become a mouthpiece for what's essentially progressive, Marxist or postmodernist, however you want to term it or label it, propaganda. Prime example, I got an audition recently. My manager, she's a fantastic person and really great at her job. But she sent me this audition for a long-running network procedural that airs every week. I call it one of the Dick Wolves, one of the Dick Wolf shows, like, a la Law and Order, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, oh, great. This person is a doctor. He's educated, intelligent, and, empathetic. This role is right up my alley. And I'm reading it and I'm really digging it. I'm digging it. I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to put myself on tape for this and put some work into it for the preparation of it. But then I got to the last page and it talks about how, just to be vague, but somewhat specific, it talks about like medical disparities between Black and white people and how Black people are suffering from these disparities specifically because they are Black. And that's just it. Wow. And when I read that, my heart just kind of sank, because I said, here's somebody who, in the scene, he's talking to a kid who is a young boy who is in a gang, and he got injured, and he's treating this kid who's in the gang. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, here's a great character who is trying to help out this at-risk youth. And but then this white female character comes in, and she becomes the problem. Not that this kid has joined. The gang is like part of the problem, but then it becomes that she's ignorant to the quote unquote whatever the means, a Black experience, as if there's one unified Black experience. Right. And, I'm just kind of sick of this stuff. Or just as a man, there's so many scripts now, and as much as it bothers people with Hollywood, I would say it's even 10 times more concentrated in the New York theater scene, which dictates what happens with the rest of the country. And a lot of stuff comes out of there that ends up, ending up in Hollywood. But it's this idea that, I was on a Zoom call for a play reading that we were doing online. And one of the lead actors was talking about his family, and he has all daughters, I guess. And he said, he goes, yep, I have all daughters. I don't create any useless humans. And everyone started laughing. And I just said to myself, like, this pervasive attitude of anything male, anything masculine, even existing is wrong. And you spend years and years kind of biting your tongue, because it becomes clear that the dominant. I mean, there was one show that I was doing that was set in 1947, during World War II, and
That sounds cool.
I brought up the point that we have men and women in the workplace, and a big part of this particular show, which is why I was excited to do it, was the intermingling of sex and danger in this show.
Okay.
And I said, well, you as an actor, you have discussions. I mean, I think way fewer people would want to be actors if they knew how tedious it often can be.
Yeah.
But we're talking about the story and how to set the scene, and for the audience, and what kind of world we're trying to create. And I made the point that, well, we have men and women integrated in the workplace at this particular time, and maybe they don't know. It's sort of a Petersonian point, if I may say so, that you have men and women working together in a close environment for the first time, maybe forever. So how do we as human beings negotiate those rules in a society where we were perhaps more separated before? And it became like, women have been in the workplace, especially Black women. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, that's not even the point I was making, you dumbass. I'm talking about how. I'm trying to throw out ideas of things that we can use as actors to fuel our performances in this scene about it, or maybe inform the rest of the play about how men and women are interacting in this story that has sex and danger and violence at the very core of it. And maybe that can be useful. I mean, maybe your listeners agree. Does that sound useful? If you want to explore that, to try to find some kind of exciting moments for an audience, the tension that might exist between men and women who haven't really been working together before. It's that kind of a thing. Very practical, very sort of down to earth and grounded in sort of human impulses. But it became this whole. I mean, that first week of rehearsal, I realized, like, oh man, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be the men are bad and women good show, and whatever input I have to offer that might shift some kind of accountability or blame or paint women in a negative light, that will be shot down. The director was talking about maybe cutting some lines, even some really great lines. There's one line where one of the characters says, he's like, women is the craziest people I ever met. And that line always got a laugh every night.
Yeah.
But the director was like, I'm thinking about cutting that for a variety of reasons, because it's offensive. And it's like, dude, the audience gets it. That's why they're laughing. That's why
exactly.
It's a funny line. Because I mean, how many guys have said that? How many guys feel that way? It doesn't mean we don't love you or don't want you or whatever. It's just, that's just part of the human condition. It's the tension that we live among. And I
think that nails it right there. Actually, what he's saying and what it's proving, the entire industry, they don't want the audience to care about it. They want to teach the audience. You need to learn these lessons because society is wrong. You're wrong for believing what you want to believe. This is how it should be. Instead of like that line, people were laughing because they can emphasize with it. They can connect to it. Suddenly they have a little bit more of a connection to what's going on. And then they're more intrigued to follow along more instead of being told, you're wrong for however you feel. We got to cut all these little lines just to make sure that we're teaching people instead of showing them something that they can connect to.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the whole thing. It's all about connecting and finding, I had a wonderful teacher named Zelda Fitzhandler, may she rest in peace. And she really changed my life in a lot of positive ways. But she once told me, the more, like we say right now, like the personal is political, but she would say that the personal is universal, i.e. the more personal something is, the more universal it becomes. And I discovered this when I wrote a one-man show where I was talking about it. It was wrapped around these themes of my own sort of feelings of loneliness, disconnection, and feeling detached. And I had so many people from so many walks of life coming up to me saying, like, I can relate to what you were talking about. And that's when I began to understand it. There are just certain experiences about being a human being that are universal, that everyone's going to get, even if they don't have your exact experience. And the more that we stray away from that, the more that the goal becomes. I keep referencing this essay by Albert Maltz in 1946 called "What Shall We Ask of Writers?" And this is a left-wing writer, Albert Maltz, who was assailing left-wing artistry and criticism. And they're writing these shallow political leaflets. They're using art as a weapon, is what he calls it, and they're writing
Yeah.
stuff to appease their peers, essentially, and to appease the politics that of the moment that cater to their own sort of ideology and agenda. And what that does is that it blunts the force of whatever the work might be, and it's no longer audience focused after that point. It's no longer about creating an emotional experience and an emotional journey for the
A
audience.
connection. Yep.
Yeah, and and that's kind of the magic of it all. I mean, I know people think it's theater or it's just the movies. Who cares? But there is something to be said about the communal experience of sitting in a room together or gathering in a park. They screened the movie Airplane, which is one of the funniest movies ever made.
Great movie.
Some years ago in Central Park, and there were about 500 people there. And even though that movie was made, I want to say in 79 or 1980, and there's so much in that film you would never be able to get away with today.
Sure.
All the jokes still landed, and to see this audience of hundreds of strangers all responding in the same way to what's going on screen, and having this collective experience, dare I say the word collective,
right?
This sort of experience together. I think it's a really sort of powerful thing, and but now in New York City is trying to actively discourage any sort of community experience at that point.
Well, we'll get that. We will get to that in a second.
Oh boy.
But before we do it, it's just onto this point. It does feel like people are thirsty for that kind of connection, that kind of raw entertainment, right? Something that they can connect to that doesn't shove things down your throat, that doesn't just automatically assume you need to be taught a lesson that, we're not kids anymore. We're not watching cartoons. We're adults that, can handle real life because, hey, newsflash, we live in it every day. We see what we see. We don't need to be told this BS virtuous, ideology that they're trying to shove, So I feel like we're on the verge of that bubble popping, like that woke mob takeover, because they've been screeching the loudest. But money talks, and movies are bombing because they're trying so hard to, go down this path, and they stopped caring about the audience. They really don't care about the connection. They just want the butts in the seat. They're just like, look at He-Man, it's like they said, it's totally going to be He-Man. It's not going to be She-Ra or whatever her name is. I don't remember. It's a whole mess, but they killed him in the first episode, and it became about a woman like taking over and being the powerful character instead. And everyone's like, come on, we're so sick of this. And they want real.
Well, and the irony is that Tila,
there it is.
If the story had become like He-Man dies, that could have been a very shocking plot point,
right?
And and if she had learned about Adam's identity, and like watching her kind of deal with like insecurity, and if she's all of a sudden given all of these responsibilities and this image to live up to in Prince Adam's absence and He-Man's absence, I think a lot of people would go along with that story and say, oh wow, let's see how Tila grows throughout all of this,
right? Let's
see what kind of a hero or heroine she will be. How will she fill that void in Adam's absence? And I think a lot of people would have really been intrigued by that. Instead, I saw some of the promotional material about it, and I think one of the ironies is that Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think, who voices Tila, who is a star of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is a beloved show. I've never seen it, but everyone who talks about it has just adored it. It became this idea of powerful women, essentially. And there's a whole other kind of rabbit hole to go down about how these quote unquote powerful women just kind of seem like mediocre versions of men, or that they're trying to emulate sort of caricatured, classical but caricatured male traits, like brute strength and aggression,
big shoulders.
Big shoulders, lots of military presses or whatever.
Yeah.
But but then the question becomes, and I've had close female friends ask this of me, well, what about being a woman? What about what is unique and powerful about the feminine? What is what can be explored in that? There's tons and tons of dramatic material um, to be found, to be mined,
Yeah.
in those kinds of questions. And then and how does that clash with men and masculinity and all those, I mean, some of the great stories have been about that. I mean, Shakespeare, Mark Antony and Cleopatra. It's such a great story. I love it because you have one of the most powerful men in the world, this general, this but he is completely wrapped around the finger of this woman, Cleopatra, and a lot of tragedy ensues because of that. And or the Macbeths, Lady M, the wife of the title character, the way she manipulates him, and she questions his manhood, his masculinity. I mean, she has a whole monologue on stage by herself early in the play where she's saying, "Unsex me here. If I were a man, I would do this. Oh God, that I were a man, I would do this and that." And and she's very frustrated. And what she ends up doing is she goes to her husband like, you're not going to kill the king. What are you? Are you not a man? You were a coward. And he ends up, because he has a conscience, he gets attacked, but then he ends up by the end of the scene agreeing to do it. And then, the tragedy ensues, but then she ends up killing herself late in the play. She can't handle the burden of what she's done, of what she's caused. So there's interesting stories like that you can tell that really encompass certain truths about men and women and relationships and and this play was written hundreds of years ago, by the way, hundreds of years ago. And back at a time when authors could still, were more interested in serving as mirrors to society and to humanity, as opposed to, like I said before, trying to use art as a weapon to forward some kind of message, or basically using art as a tool for social engineering, which I think people are really kind of getting hip to and getting tired of. And
I think that's the problem with He-Man, though. They didn't. That's not how they marketed it. They marketed it as like He-Man's coming back, and all those people who like He-Man was their beloved childhood. Like I had the He-Man sword as a kid. Like I ran around swinging that thing, and it made noises anytime you hit it, and you had a button. And it's like I have the power. It was awesome.
I have the power. Yes, sir.
It was great, and that's not what they marketed it as. They said if they had said we're bringing it back, it's not going to be what you remember. We're using, we're going to shake the story up. And like you said, if they had done it appropriately and said, like, this is not what you expect. It's going to be her. She's going to have to deal with people who've been pissed, but they were lied to and they got annoyed. And that's what they were angry at. And then, like you said earlier, if they go against it, which most of the fans hate Kevin Smith now. They're like, you betrayed us. You lied to us. And they're like, what are you, you're misogynistic men now, huh? Toxic men, because you're mad that the woman is like the main character. And it's like, no, we're not. We're mad because you ruined the IP. You killed He-Man off, and you marketed it to us as though it was going to be this epic return of He-Man, the show that we all loved. You used us. You used the IP that we loved to shove down that ideology that, like, and of course the woman in the show. So I haven't seen it myself, but what I hear is she's awfully masculine and she's taking the man's place. And it's like, we have there's a men and female, like, do the female traits, like shine a light on a strong female character. There's nothing wrong with that. I wouldn't have been upset about that. I don't think people would have been.
And by the way, we talk about, strong women, or strong characters, but the reality is that oftentimes we go to see, if we go to the theater or we go to the cinema, we connect with characters who are flawed and characters who have weaknesses and characters that display what those are. And then part of a great story is they struggle to overcome those weaknesses or work against them.
Tony Stark.
Or eradicate them. And that's exactly, exactly. And I was talking to another artist, a guy named Cecil, excuse me, I'm not British, but Cecil Charles, about this. And, we kind of talked about how a story is a struggle. And, there's any great drama, there's great conflict at the center of it. And there's two opposing forces that conflict with one another, and the effectiveness and the power of a story or a piece of drama, a piece of fiction, how does that conflict resolve, and what is the impact on the audience of that? What is the fulfillment of the promise set forth by the story initially? And if you're promising to tell this great story about He-Man, and you don't fulfill that promise, then people are going to be upset. And I think one of the things that also irritates me is that, and one of the reasons I began to really become more vocal is that, you can't, the way that people are denigrating these audiences, it speaks to a larger issue, which is that you have a cluster of people, and Thomas Sowell writes about this brilliantly. He's been doing it for decades. He talks about the vision of the anointed, the people who call themselves the anointed, or those who have the unconstrained vision of life. And these are people who believe, because they've gone through all these avenues, they've gone through these elite institutions, they've checked all the right boxes.
Yeah.
They think that they are the ones who are, as the experts, and all of this talent and intellectual ability is concentrated in the hands of a few to disperse to the many, and the many are those who are uneducated. They're the masses who are stupid. They're not as morally correct. And I think one of the reasons that things are kind of falling apart now, and why the bubble will burst soon, and I was talking about this to some colleagues the other day, is that in the era of something like YouTube, and in the era of social media, where we now have access to these not only normal people, but also to these celebrities. And what we're learning is that, unlike in the past, where celebrities had very, very carefully cultivated public images, there were people that were hired to control those images in the studio system in Hollywood. They had people cleaning up the actors' messes. They kept getting themselves into trouble, but they had to ensure it wouldn't reach the papers and cause any kind of upset with their fan bases. But now we have 24/7 access to what these people, these famous people, these actors, these celebrities really think. And what we're learning is that they're really not that smart, and they're really not that interesting. They're not as interesting as listening to some random
Thomas Sowell.
Well, you can.
I'll take him any day over any celeb.
Exactly. But not even just Thomas Sowell. I mean, you have people who are sitting, just in their bathrobes, providing political commentary, or you have people who, I mean, one of my favorite examples is there's a guy, I can't remember his name, but I mean, his YouTube channel it's videos of him with rats. I mean, not rats, but chasing rats with trained dogs and one other kind of rodent, maybe ferrets. I don't know what it is.
What?
But his videos have like tens of millions of views, and I watch them. I'm watching them like, I did not know I needed to see this dude running around like catching rats. It's all that's that guy's passion. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, is that guy's passion is doing this particular thing, and it's really interesting to watch. And what people are doing now is they're migrating more and more towards these interesting niche personalities and people, and they're migrating away from these really uninteresting and kind of boring conformist celebrities. So the whole era of the movie star, I think, is quite over. What it means to be famous, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean what it used to be. You can be a movie star, whatever that means, but at the same time, you could also start a podcast and have way more reach and influence. You can get famous off of a tweet.
That's true.
So, it's way decentralized now. Well, exactly. I mean, and I think people are seeing what guys like Tim are doing. They're seeing what guys like Joe Rogan are doing. They're seeing the impact guys like Jordan Peterson have. And people are saying to themselves, well, wait a minute. I don't really care about this particular actor's stupid opinions about socialism.
Right.
They clearly don't know what they're talking about. But here's a person who has a YouTube channel that actually lived under a socialist regime, and they're telling me about it. It's that kind of stuff that says to me, like, look, the game has to change, and I think where the change is going is it's going to go into the hands of independent content creators, as opposed to this big overarching studio system, and it's probably a better thing than not.
I agree 100%. All right, let's talk about vaccine passports. And how terrible they are. Look, I'm just going to preface this with follow your doctor's advice. always listen to your doctor and do what's best for you. That being said, this is crazy. These vaccine passports are being pushed everywhere, and people are rising up across the world. In fact, I have images here. Ireland, France, where else? Sydney, Australia, Israel, Bulgaria, all these different places, Austria also. It's like these people are rising up. In Italy, they are burning their vaccine cards to stand in solidarity with the people that are saying, I don't want to get this, and they're like, you shouldn't be forced to get it. And we were talking earlier, and it's like, I agree with you. You were saying that, look, if you are at risk, I get it. Like, I have nothing against the people that want to get it. But if it works, then it shouldn't be a problem. I'm not killing anybody if I personally don't want to get it, because if you feel fear for this, get the vaccine and then it'll be fine.
And part of the problem with that is that, the discourse right now is it's so toxic and it's so rancorous and frankly so stupid. And I was talking to a mentor of mine. I was talking to a mentor of mine earlier today about this, and I said, I'm somebody, again, my position. I do question the the safety of the I guess for the sake of simplicity, I'll call it a vaccine, but never with necessarily the efficacy and effectiveness of it. My position is, again, consult your doctor, obviously. But if that's a choice that you need to make, and you're someone who is, over 65, you have a compromised immune system. I mean, part of the difficulty right now, even though I push back very strongly online about the mandates disproportionately affecting the Black community. The fact of the matter is, you also have to be fair and say, well, look, in Black America, there is a prevalence of overweight people. There's an obesity issue, and with that comes several key underlying comorbidities or
I think that's just Americans in general.
But it's look, the CDC, I don't know if we want to trust them, but this has been on the books for years. I mean, I think they said 70% of Black women between the ages of 17 and 60 or something like that are overweight or obese.
Wow.
And that's going to lead to some problems, and namely heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure, which runs in my family. I mean, my mom took medication for it. My grandmother took medication for it. I was prescribed medication for it at 25 years of age. It's one of the reasons I work out so much now, is that my levels are normal. And COVID was basically a mild cold for me. So why aren't we putting out more of those stories, in terms of public health messaging? But the point is that, there is a tragedy in terms of the low vaccine uptake among Black Americans, and that this is a group that could could conceivably benefit disproportionately from higher vaccine uptake, and yet they're still refusing to take it. I think that there are people that definitely in communities that are difficult to reach that could probably benefit from it, but at the same time, just by and large, Black people ain't taking this. And I was thinking about this last night, is that there's so many things that Black people believe. We are some conspiracy believing. Can we curse? I was gonna say MFers.
No. But, thank you for not. Yeah.
But I mean, there are so many conversations in Black barbershops around the country that would get people banned and suspended from Twitter. I'm down here in Atlanta. It is a chocolate city. I mean, I've had people, people young and old, talk about how the whole rollout and even the whole pandemic is this sort of weird conspiracy, and that people are talking about Marvin Hagler and DMX and what happened with them. And so it's not uncommon. And when you have on top of that, and part of my thing with this whole issue, this passport issue, at least in America, is that it's blatantly discriminatory at a disproportionate rate to Black people and Latinos second place. Although, side note, I think Asian Americans have like a 65% vaccination rate. So we're going to see how white adjacent they remain with these high vaccination rates. But it's the sheer hypocrisy of it. Because if we all recall, last year, the very same people demanding that we impose these mandates that will disproportionately discriminate against Black people are the same people that were pushing anti-racism. They were destroying cities and Black-owned businesses for the sake of quote unquote Black lives mattering. And yet here they are turning around a year later and discriminating against I mean, to have Don Lemon on CNN talking about, well, you don't have the vaccine, you can't do this, you don't have the vaccine. I'm like, dude, you're talking about people who look like you. And I don't think that they really understand that, or if they do understand that, they don't care.
They don't care.
When I bring this up, I mean, the pushback that I get is that so-called anti-vaxxers are using this race or race baiting. I mean, it's pure projection for one, but using race baiting in order to further their own agenda. There is this tendency. To me, it's an extension of the tendency of people on the left to completely deny the agency of Black Americans. And the thing is, it's a failure to kind of understand and comprehend Black culture and Black psychology in America. And it goes beyond political lines, because if you're on the right and you're Black, you're going to have issues with government and skepticism of the government for those reasons. And if you're on the left, guess what? What have you been told all your life? The government is racist. America is white supremacist. Every institution, from education to entertainment to media to the medical apparatus, is racist and out to get you, and you shouldn't trust it. And now you want them to turn around and just line up and get this sorry, but this new injection. They're not going to do it.
No,
I mean, in a way, it's the chickens coming home to roost, because it's now Black people saying like, I don't trust that. I mean, that's literally what they say. They don't trust it.
The CDC reported today that only 28.4% of the Black community has received the COVID vaccine. And with New York mandating it, this is actually just came out from New York here. This is de Blasio's, the key to NYC unlocks. Literally, you need a vaccine passport to do all of these things: movie theaters, live music, concert venues, museums, galleries, aquariums, professional sports arenas, stadiums, bowling alleys, restaurants, event spaces, bars, literally everything you do in NYC, bakeries, cafeterias, grocery stores. You can't go grocery shopping anymore.
And let me say, like, you skipped over performing arts theaters, but here's
excuse me.
But here's the salient point about that, because right now, especially in the wake of George Floyd's death, my industry has been completely taken over by this obsession with anti-racism. Okay. I'll call it the cult of anti-racism. Yeah. And I mean, literally, I mean, you see these emails that I get from our unions, and just this idea of justice and equity and inclusion. And part of the complaint, and it's a good complaint in terms of theaters around the country and in New York, trying to reach more audiences, reach more diverse audiences. Because the fact of the matter is, if you're talking about typical Black America, theater going, first of all, a lot of us don't have the luxury of having the money to just go see a play on on Friday night or matinee on the weekends. It's just not really deeply ingrained in the Black culture in a lot of ways, in the same way that maybe music and sports are, or church. On top of that,
you're generalizing it a little bit too, because earlier you said like whatever the Black experience is, because like you said, like there is only one Black experience. It's almost like you're saying that it is something that is an experience because of what you just said right now. You know what I mean? I just had to call that out because I caught it. I'm like, well, you're kind of saying that there's a generalized Black experience that you said earlier that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is. I'll put it this way: you're far more likely to find I mean, I'm an atheist, right? And like, you're far more likely to find a Black person who has church stories, than you are to find a Black person who says, yeah, I grew up going to the theater. I think on an individual basis, people vary, but in terms of Black America, there is there are some like sort of shared kind of collective experiences, but even within that, you know, you have Nigerians who have their kind of point of view. You have Jamaicans who have their own point of view. Trinidadians who come in who have their own point of view.
Yeah.
So there is variety in that. But in the Black American experience, you have immigrants from the African diaspora. So I do try to shy away from generalizations, but at the same time, there are patterns and trends that you know that you do notice.
Okay.
And but the irony is, you know, these people want to reach out to find more Black audiences, but now they're excluding them completely from, not completely, but they're excluding them from coming to the theater. At the same time, they're saying we want more of these people in there. So there's just a complete a complete lack and inability to honor Black people's choices and freedom and autonomy and agency. Yeah. But also, it just seems as though they don't really care about what they say that they care about if they're going to go through with these measures. And Ibram X. Kendi, this brilliant man, wrote that his definition of a racist policy is a policy that creates racist results. I mean, that's pretty much what he says. Yeah. And this inevitably creates racist results. And the fact that, you know, and the pushback that I get about that is that people say, well, you know, they have the choice to get it, so they can get it. I don't see how this is discriminatory. I'm like, well, they're being forced to take it in order to go grocery shopping or participate in society. Or people say, like, you know, well, you need to get a flu shot. I'm like, no, we don't need to get a flu shot every year. I was doing a show where half my cast got the flu shot. And they got sick. I did not.
Right.
You know, and I'm working with.
I haven't had a flu shot in my entire adult life. Not once.
I mean, you don't need it, and no one's telling me that you have to get a flu shot in order to.
Exactly.
I mean, like there was if anyone wants to call me an anti-vaxxer, I mean, there was a few years ago with my ex-girlfriend. You know, I was visiting her with her family out in California. They had she had a newborn niece, and the nieces, her parents were just requested that anyone who wanted to come and see the new baby get a flu shot. I was like, yeah, I want to see a little girl. You know what I mean? Like, let me like shoot me up, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and if I book a job or a movie that shoots in a country that says like, well, you need to take this vaccine for yellow fever, I'm going to take it because I do not want yellow fever. I have already recovered from COVID-19, however. So I don't see why I'm being forced to take this thing, and why we're ignoring the idea of natural immunity, or the idea that we're calling natural immunity a right-wing talking point. It's very
crazy to me. That's crazy to me. It's like the cells gain the memory. I mean, we're borderline here, but it's. I mean, you and I feel the same way as you do about it, though. It's pretty insane.
I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, we can still be rational about it. It's just that, you know, we can ask very reasonable questions and say like, what? Because and part of the problem too, and you know, I'm thinking about this earlier, is that there's like kind of three different realities kind of coexisting, which makes it more confusing. In one reality, the shots are 100% safe and effective, and like there's very little side effects and nothing happens. And it's this other reality, you know, I'll use ban resistant language, but in this other reality, you know, there are how can I say this? Technologies and
I don't think you need to say anything. I think everyone knows.
You know where I'm going.
The alternate reality of the opposite side of the spectrum. All right, guys, you guys know what he's talking about.
You know, there's like a mass event coming up. I mean, I've seen this stuff. I see what the more extreme claims are, but then there's this third reality, which I feel like a lot of us are trying to wade through.
It's the bell curve. I feel like there's people on this side and people on this side, and most people are in the middle. Like, these two sides are crazy. That's crazy, and that's crazy. Both of these.
You know, and I break a little from you know, there's a camp called Team Reality, and we are people, you know, from across the political spectrum. A lot of us are on the left who are saying like, wait a minute, these measures they're not really making sense for a variety of reasons. And I think a lot of people, even on I differ with people on Team Reality in terms of they're sort of. I sort of accuse them of being myopically focused on vaccines as the way out, as opposed to, you know, in the same way that some people say like, well, masks are the only way out, or lockdown is the only way out. I think there's too much of a focus on it. But this third reality, I think, is that there's people that are like, we're trying to navigate what this is. It seems to be that most people take it, and at least in the short term, they're fine. But there
Yeah.
also seems to be a lot of suppressed discussion and evidence to suggest
Some.
that there's something else going on here, and that people are
Yeah.
having a really hard time with this. And
Yeah.
we should be able to talk about that so that people can really accurately assess what kind of risks they're taking in terms of taking this this drug that's been approved for emergency use. And I think that's completely fair. I mean, my thing is just that, just there's different ways to skin a cat, and there are multiple ways that we can attack this disease that appear to be available. And the fact that only one avenue is socially acceptable to explore, and that only one avenue is being pursued, and the only one avenue is being mandated by your employers and by government officials, that I think deserves some examination and some real skepticism and questioning. But now, because of that, I'm being lumped in with people in this reality over here who talk about mass events and various technologies and so on and so forth. And I think that's completely just it's not fair. And
there's an image of progressive leftism folks, and it's a spectrum, right? There's the center line, okay, and they started here, and then conservatives are here. Here's the line, right? And they've gotten so far over there that you're here standing in the center, like you said, you're in that third group, but they're so far over there that when they look over, they see someone like you and I standing there in the middle, but it looks like we're standing right next to the people that are further to the right of us, and it's like, oh, you guys are all bigots, racists, misogynistics, anti-vaxxers, all of the freaking buzzwords that they shout to the sky when they freak out.
Yeah, and it's very and something that's really strange about it as well is that the level of dehumanization I'm seeing right now is very, very disturbing to me. And it's just funny that whenever you start to break Godwin's law, people jump down your throat about it. But at the same time, these are the same people that were talking about Orange Hitler for the last 4 years.
Look at this. This is a list of in 1942 in France, all Jewish people weren't allowed in restaurants, cafes, theaters, concerts, music halls, telephone cabins, and then of course it's bibliotheques, libraries. So it's like you mentioned it, and I mean there's direct comparisons now that we're seeing. Okay, so sure, it's not Jewish people anymore. Now it's the unvaccinated, because they're the threat, that, like you said, the dehumanization. That's exactly what was going on back then, and now they're doing it now.
And I've been reading a lot lately about. I think one of the things that's most urgent to me to understand right now is what happens to art and artists during the rise of authoritarian regimes, and what. How do you combat that? How do you go against that? What can you do to fight in the face of that, to avoid any of the same kind of mistakes that happened again? And I think there's a really weird thing where I'll back up and give an example. So there's a great playwright named Arthur Miller who wrote The Crucible. He wrote Death of a Salesman, and back in the mid 20th century, he's writing. The Crucible is an allegory about communism, basically. These Salem witch hunts, although it's on the side of the Marxists. But there's a brilliant playwright who wrote the foreword to a recent collection of his plays that was published, and she writes about how in the 1950s there was there was a paranoia about communism for some reason. And she literally wrote that. And one of the biggest things I see is that there's a refusal or just a complete ignorance on the I guess the so-called left to acknowledge that, okay, we all understand that Nazis were bad and Nazism was bad, but what the people that are being characterized as right-wing now, who are talking about commies all the time, we're saying no, it's not as though we disagree with your ideals in terms of creating a just society and having freedom for all yada yada yada. It's that we are seeing the ideological roots of what you want, and we've seen them before, and we have a historical record on where that leads.
Exactly.
And what we're saying now is that there are disturbing parallels to what's happening right now to what happened back then. But they it's completely it's seen it. They can't see it, they don't see it. And
they're brainwashed.
I don't know, how you square that circle. When it gets to the point where they are completely fine with discriminating against a huge minority that they claimed to champion just a year before, the same minority that disproportionately was like, they're working as trash collectors, they're delivering your food, they're working in kitchens, they're mechanics for public transit, so on and so forth. These were the essential workers that we were supposed to clap for at 7 p.m. every night. And yet here, the nurses, and yet now here you are saying, yeah, you can't come into my bar. You can't come into my bar, darky. I mean, sorry, it's just reminiscent of a previous era. And the fact that they can't, or they don't, or they just won't see that, so it just leads you to the understanding or the idea that there's just something else that's going on. That's deeper than maybe we have the language to even wrap our minds around and talk about. Maybe a mass psychosis, maybe some kind of some dearth of, again, I'm an atheist, but this dearth of spiritual fulfillment. I don't know what it is, but this lack of respect for humanity, the human condition, this lack of empathy, this lack of curiosity, lack of respect. I don't know what it is, but they're totally locked on this one course, and they don't seem to. I've been speaking out against lockdowns since last year. It's like, guys, come on. You have to see the costs and ramifications of this in a bigger, from a bigger perspective than you're seeing it right now. But they just don't. They can't do it.
No, it's scary. Well, I got to say, this has been awesome, man. Clifton, you are filled with all sorts of incredible knowledge. And clearly you're tuned in to what's going on right now. So thank you. I see a lot of people in chat wondering how they can follow you. I have your Twitter account down below. You can follow him on Twitter. A lot of people are asking for your YouTube page, or like, what are you doing for your own, do you have your own podcast? Because I feel like people would listen to you.
Yeah, so I can be found on Twitter at Clifton A. Duncan. First and foremost, it's probably the platform I have the hugest following on. I also have an Instagram page at Clifton Duncan Online. I definitely want to use more of the IGTV and IG Live platforms.
Cool.
My YouTube channel is Clifton Duncan Entertainment. I have a few videos posted there right now. I'm going to make more use of those and upload more performance-oriented content. I think the thing that's unique about me is that, in terms of the content creator space, there's this taboo about clout chasing or chasing an audience. You're kind of supposed to be ashamed of it a little bit, but it's like, no, I'm an actor. Like, the audience is my customers, and I live to serve them, and so I'm not ashamed, or and I'm not shy about that. But in terms of a podcast, yes, I'm working on a video right now that's going to make my first one, because it just seems like I just need people behind me, because it just seems clear to me that there's not really a path forward for me right now. I corresponded with my manager today about this, and she's she's wonderful. She knows that I'm not taking the vaccine, and yet she's still trying to submit me, and she's very understanding about it.
That's good.
So, but it seems like right now there's no avenues really open for me to work, even though when things shut down, I was a rising star in many ways. So, I need the public, I need support, and eventually I want to definitely monetize what I do best, which is performing
nice.
for all you beautiful people. So,
I put your YouTube down in the description also. You might have to refresh the page, but I just did that, so you can go click and follow him on YouTube. Definitely go check this guy out. I had the pleasure of meeting you in person in the Timcast Castle last year, or earlier this year. I'm not sure, but I got a bunch of super chats. I saw a couple questions pop up for you, so let's get into it. Robert Weil says, Diana Francisco is a good friend, and her mom loves watching your stream, Adam. I hope this makes her happy. Be blessed all. USA, USA, USA. What's up, Diana's mom? How you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for watching my show. I appreciate you. Robert Shaw says F Blizzotes. Okay. Pinch Me says, oh yeah, I remember that buttery voice. That's got to be you, not me.
You never know.
Well, hey, that's true. That's true. I did see a bunch of people in chat that they're like, this guy should do some voiceover work. Let's see. Andrew says the video War Castle on BitChute explains how humans are owned from birth via birth certificate. We're advancing to DNA-based ID, like the movie Looper. Okay, that's a frightening premise. Robert Shaw says you're only a slave if you never fight back. All right. Right Outside the Narrative said, hey, Adam, great guest. Love the haircut and pics of the nature around your new home. Proud of you and happy for you. Anyway, plug my channel again, yeah? Right Outside the Narrative. Thank you, YouTube and Rumble. Well, you can check it out. Right Outside the Narrative. I actually watched his intro video, and I'm happy to say that I have helped inspire him to do a channel on his own, which is very cool to think about, that I've inspired someone else to not only do their own research and really dig into the root of things, but sharing what they find. I think we need more of it. So good job, Merc. I appreciate you, mate. Keep doing it. Robert Shaw says 360 knife kill across the map, get wrecked. Okay. What is that from?
Sounds like a video game reference.
It sounds like a video game reference. Robert Shaw again says some chicks like a bad boy and like it rough. Okay, well, sure. Mao Demighty says, perfect guess. I'm playing Wolfenstein 2 at the moment. Almost surreal to think that a game so recent wouldn't be created in today's sensitive world. It's true. Yeah, good point. Robert Shaw says, if you didn't vote Democrat, you ain't black, remember? Did you vote for Democrat in the 2020 election?
I left the Democratic Party in 2018, so I'm politically white, as they say now.
Is that what they say?
That's literally what they say. Nicole Hannah-Jones said this. We're not politically black because we don't support the Democrats. This is the extent of the cancerous rot.
I didn't hear that. That's insane, though.
It's true. And by the way, this was true before all the we were talking about wokeness and all this stuff. I mean, growing up as a black person in America, you are essentially expected. I know, and again, taking your point about or your push
generalizations
about generalizations. I mean, it's just if you are a black person who does not vote Democrat, you are just a stranger and a pariah. It's already bad enough I'm an atheist, but now I don't vote Democrat, and it's like, yeah. How did you get like that?
Right. Well, have you seen the documentary from Larry Elder, Uncle Tom?
No, I haven't, but I heard it's really good though.
You got to watch it. You like Thomas Sowell's in it, a bunch of other incredible, black prominent conservatives, and it tells incredible stories that, it says, black history, but it really is American history, and it's incredible. When I finished watching it, I watched it again. I had to watch it again. And I was like telling everyone, like, you guys got to watch this. Like, this is incredible. Like the story and and you see they talk about the Democrats brainwashing the public, the black community to just go along because it's what's right. When in reality, it's totally what's wrong. And, they're getting looped into the system of needing the government, and they go into the whole welfare system in the 70s. And it's very informative all the way from Frederick Douglass on, like, they go all the way back, and it's an incredible story. So you definitely should check it out. I think where can you watch it? Someone just asked. UncleTom.com. I think it's, you still have to pay for it, but it is absolutely worth it. Really, I wish he would just release it, because I think it's that important that people just need to see it and get that message out there. I think he should do it. Mr. Knox says they require idiots to make their point stick, while shun anyone who think the other way. I've been shunned for thinking differently. Yeah, it's true. And they make you feel like you're an idiot, and make you feel like you're the worst person in the world for not going along with that narrative.
And how dare you? And they make you feel like you're alone as well.
Good point. You're the only one who does. You don't believe that Black Lives Matter? Of course I do. Yeah, of course Black Lives Matter. Duh. Like that's not an argument. It's not about that. Like you said, it's about the people up at the higher tiers that are spending money on mansions and not giving that money back into the community and sending it to a Democratic fundraising website. Like these red flags that I don't trust that. But you don't think Black Lives Matter? It's like, that's all.
Yeah.
That's your argument. You're going to just keep going back to that, huh?
Well, because they're stuck on the sentiment of the phrase. I mean, I was onto them. I visited their website back in 2014 when things began to really erupt in Ferguson, and I saw immediately. I saw scant mention of the police, or police brutality. But what I did see was a lot of intersectional left-wing Marxist sort of feminist-y buzzwords. And what really put me off was a section about, we want protection for mothers, parents, like they went out of their way not to include mentioning fathers. And I said, if you talk to Black people, they will talk, regular Black people, they will talk about, at least in my experience, about the breakdown of the family. There's a lot of organizations down here in Atlanta, just built specifically to give young Black men strong male role models because they know what's missing. They know what's missing. But
Uncle
that's
Tom,
completely
gotta watch it, man.
Yeah, I'm sure. But
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off though. Go ahead.
The Democrats on the left, it clashes with their ideology, which says that we must worship women no matter what. And meanwhile, we have a bunch of young Black kids right now that are twisting in the wind, and needlessly so, honestly. But that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down.
I mean, I think it's bigger than that. I think it's all kids are being twisted. It's a broad problem with the way that this. I mean, I've seen some nightmare teachers and what they're actually teaching these kids from down to second grade and younger. They're teaching. They're not teaching math. They're not teaching what color is what. They're teaching that white people are racist, that, you can be whatever gender you want to be. If you have a dick, you can still be a woman if you want to. And it's like, this is not what kids need to be taught. Again, a whole nother subject, but I do feel like it's a big problem with society.
Well, it's sort of quasi-religious in a way, I guess. I mean, I don't mean to insult our believers out there, but there is something about this where they're circumventing logic, and they're saying that this is the moral thing that we have to teach, and we have to. I compare it in some ways to that film Jesus Camp, where you saw these young kids. There's a 7-year-old boy who's saying like, "Yeah, I didn't know what I really wanted out of life, so I became a pastor." It's like, dude, you're 6, you're 7, like. What do you mean? Who is talking about what you want out of life right now? Like, you want to get your knees skinned and your hands dirty, eat your boogers, and
go throw dirt at someone.
Pushing your friends in the dirt. You know what I mean? Like get out the house.
Yeah.
But now we say that is wrong. That kind of indoctrination is wrong. Scaring kids with the prospect of hell is wrong, but scaring kids about the prospect of a total global collapse due to the climate in 10 years is not wrong. And we say nothing about. We say everything about religious indoctrination, but nothing about secular religious indoctrination or political indoctrination. And I think we're sowing the seeds of our own destruction if we don't. If more people don't speak up against it.
I agree. Someone in chat just said, yes, Uncle Tom is on Amazon Prime.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. So if that's true, amazing. And if you haven't watched that, please go out and watch it, people. It is incredibly enlightening and inspiring to see some of the stories of some people that rose out of real oppression. Anyway, let's see. We got some more here. We got lots of super chats. Thanks everyone for super chatting. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Hey, Clifton, do me a favor. I'm going to give you the camera. I just want you to look at the camera and just yell or scream or quietly say however you want to do it. Smash the like button. Tell people to smash it.
Hey, darling, why don't you go ahead and smash that like button?
Oh, oh, dang. Okay. Thank you. All right. Now, if you haven't smashed that like button, come on.
Smash something else.
Ayo. Rob Shaw says, good news. We have redacted internment camps for those who test positive. I'm sure that'll fix the spread. The government is totally not the redacted party. Oh man, that's it's frightening to see what. Mark Robershaw, who super chats a lot, he's redacted Shaw here. He lives in Australia, and I don't know if you've been paying attention to what's going on in Australia, but they are.
Yeah, it's pretty awful out there.
I mean, they're literally taking thousands of kids and bringing them through stadiums to force vaccinations on them.
Yeah, I saw that, a cattle call kind of a thing.
It's crazy.
And people are going along with it. I mean, that's one of the craziest things for me is just observing the levels of compliance. And that's why I get kind of down, because I feel like, the template is already set. They've gotten away with it once. What is to stop them from going down this route again? Because they've seen that they can just it works, and they can pull it off.
It's true. It's frightening. That's why they're trying to demonize DeSantis in Florida, because he's like, I'm done with this. My state's free. It's over. My state's going to be free. And they're like, he's killing grandparents.
And by the way,
where were you with Cuomo last year, huh?
Exactly. And that's the thing, right? So people like you and I, we are the conspiracy theorists, and yet these are the same people that are saying, like, well, obviously Texas and Florida are hiding the bodies somewhere. Meanwhile, they ignore that Andrew Cuomo actually did try to cover up his the death tolls of the people. They
caught him. They caught him pushing the numbers down.
His own attorney general investigated what was going on. And yet they refuse to acknowledge it. And they partly because they live in this world where everything that they don't like is a Republican talking point, or it's right wing. I mean, even people that I was talking to, I had a conversation with my manager like about a year ago, and she was like, yeah, my dad kind of watches Fox News, yada yada yada, and this whole idea of nursing homes, and it's just a this right wing kind of a thing. And I'm like, how can you be so callous to this issue? Why are you politicizing this issue? I remember when that executive order that
March
25th, paragraph 5, they put it right. They put it right in the executive order. And I'm like, and I tried to not go down the route of like, some people that we both know say, murderer Cuomo. I'm saying, what is the justification for this? And I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt, but that's never ever addressed. And obviously it looks bad because that page was scrubbed from the New York government website. So something is up, man. And
not to mention that they built an entire second hospital in the convention center, and Trump sent the Navy hospital ship to help in the New York area, and they didn't use either. Well, there's more.
Yes, there were multi-million-dollar facilities erected in Brooklyn and in Queens, and those were barely multi-million dollars, and they were barely used before they were dismantled. It happened in Queens and in Brooklyn. And meanwhile, I'm getting kicked out of J. Hood Wright Park on West 177th Street in Washington Heights because somebody in the adjacent apartment building narked on us and said that we're working out because the gyms are freaking closed and there's nowhere else to work out. And I'm working out of my mask, by the way. I was masking and isolating and distancing in New York City like in January and February because I was like, something bad is coming. So that's why I laugh when people say to me like, oh, you just you don't think that you're a denier, yada yada yada. I was taking the disease more seriously earlier than most of these people were. So but that also my progression was was ahead of the curve as well, where I began to be like, something is weird here and something is off and this is not okay. And I'm being told this one thing, but it seems to me that something else is going on. And like we said before, once you begin seeing these threads, you can't unsee them.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Once you take the red pill, there's no going back.
No.
Let's see. Hydro says everything the Democrats are doing is not racist. It's evil and wrong. Racism is a made-up word to control free speech.
Racism is also could also be defined as thinking that people are a certain way because of their race, or generalizing people because of their race, which I guess I've been accused of doing, or thinking people are superior or inferior based on their racial characteristics. So, which does happen. I understand what the person is saying from a socio-political standpoint, but I think that's a bit simplistic. But what that individual touched on there is that touched on in there in that comment is it goes back to this idea of, are we using the right language to describe what's going on? Because even myself,
it's a good point.
This is part of my bias, I guess. But the idea of evil existing, I think, is so foreign to a lot of people. And I watch a lot of police videos, right, like dash cam, body cam footage, and you get to see kind of close up the kind of evil people that, people taking hostages, abusing their spouses, all kinds of just horrible behavior. And we also understand about like white collar criminals and that kind of a thing. And the extreme cases of like the Richard Ramirez's and Ted Bundy's and so on and so forth. But I think people's idea of evil never encompasses, let's say, a high up bureaucrat or official who works for, say, the NIH or the NIAID or for the CDC. They don't. There's no. I don't think people have the bandwidth to consider that these people might be, or let's say some billionaire software tycoons might have, who shall remain nameless, might have other designs for us that aren't necessarily the best. I think people are really, really ill-equipped right now partly because things have been so good for so long.
Yeah,
they've been able to be insulated from this idea of true evil, and maybe because they themselves are good people and they don't know that many truly evil people. They don't think that it's something that's a real phenomenon. But maybe that they need to reconsider that, and maybe they need to sort of become more open to the idea that the people who are in charge may not have the best intentions for us, even though they say that they do. It's a classic Plato quote. This is it. Plato. This only is the root of all tyrants. When he first comes, he is a protector. I think that's the quote. I mean, guys, they're not dumb. They're smart people. So there might be a chance that they are being deceptive.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down, a whole soapbox on that or rabbit hole, but just the idea that, evil exists, and we may have to, this person is correct in saying that, we may have to just become more comfortable opening ourselves up to the idea that evil is out there and people are actually capable of doing really, really horrible things.
I think both can be true, actually. I think things that they're doing can be racist and also evil because of something different, because they're manipulating, because they're trying to decide that they are, what was the word that Thomas Sowell, the anointed or something, these people that think that they know what's best for society. So therefore they have evil intent, however, whatever they think they're doing, and the things that they do with that evil intent are also racist and evil. Because racism, it does exist. It's treating someone differently based on the color of their skin or their gender or whatever, all the different things, instead of realizing that we're all human beings and all of us feel pain, all of us feel happiness, all of us, every single one of us. Unless you're a sociopath, I guess, then you don't feel that way. But Eric Peter says, "Oh my God, Obama is a joke. Here is your money." Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. Robert Shaw says Obama was a comedian. He did try to play it off and laugh all the time, didn't he? Xerex says New Yorkers have to protest despite being black. I don't see Excelsior Pass as a race issue, as it's untouched. And on that note, my fear is that it will stoke things for Democratic profit. We have to assume these people are clever. One idea I have is I have numbers on my sleeve similar to 1930s Germany, but that might be too much. This person just summed it up perfectly about that, whether it's evil or racist. And it's like, it feels like it's evil that's driving these people. Like, because, it feels like they want to control the world. That's what it feels like, right? I don't know. I don't know who's pulling the strings. I don't know if there is someone pulling the strings, or if some of them might truly believe it's what's best for everybody. Well, and I think that could be the case.
Well, and also, you don't have to think of it in terms of these like broad conspiracies. I know that I do think it's interesting that whenever you are slandered as a so-called conspiracy theorist, it's usually in service of protecting the overarching narrative,
Right.
and protecting the people that are sort of at the heads of things. But you can attribute a lot of this stuff just to basic human motives that we've understood for thousands of years, and which is covered in lots of classical drama. This. I mean, I see someone like Anthony Fauci. He strikes me as a bit of a narcissist, probably someone who is near the end of his life and wants to cement for himself sort of a legacy. What better way to do that than to be one of the shining lights and heroes of the quote unquote worst pandemic in a century? Maybe he's angling for some kind of Nobel Prize before he retires and steps down. I mean, that's a completely understandable drive and goal. If you're a careerist and you want to be looked on kindly after you've gone. If you're someone like a Bill Gates, that there is something about making lots of money that, I think this was back in like the Elliot Spitzer times in New York. I don't know if you were around then, but these reports came out about, these guys on Wall Street or powerful people, the same receptors in the brain that are augmented or affected by cocaine use are also augmented when people make lots of money. So this idea of always winning, amassing and accruing more power, more status, more influence, especially for men, because there's so many benefits for a male to have money, to have power, to have influence. If we're being real about it. So again, you don't have to say, I'm twirling my mustache and there's evil afoot and I'm going to do it. It doesn't have to be that kind of a thing. It can just be a small enough cluster of people with enough power and influence amongst themselves, pursuing completely human and sympatheticness, or someone being sympathetic and someone being likable aren't the same thing. True. But you can have a sympathy for someone like a Fauci or a Walensky or a Randy Weingarten. I call her Ratio Randy. You can have sympathy for these people and understand where they're coming from in terms of them acting in what they believe to be their own self-interest. Even Andrew Cuomo. You can never apologize as a politician, and after a certain point, he knows what he's doing is not subtle. I mean, he said it on a leaked phone call. He understands what's going on, but he also has to cover his own butt. He has to think about his own legacy. He has his own reputation to uphold and think about. And I'm not trying to make excuses for these people. What I am saying is that there's other language you can use to kind of dissect what these issues that are going on. And part of it is just me as an actor saying, asking questions. What's this person's motivation? What has their past been like? What clues can I gain to sort of get at what their underlying motivators are?
That's the beauty of acting. I was actually talking to another acting buddy of mine, and I've taken some acting classes, and part of the thing to be a good actor is listening to other people and seeing how they're taking information and working off of that. And you kind of build an empathy for others in this sense, where I feel like at acting class, everyone should take an acting class. Like, I think it should be part of just a normal school to learn how to listen to other people. It's super important.
It's also openness. You have to be open, and curiosity and empathy are two of the cornerstones of any actor's craft. And I see very, very little of either of those attributes being used right now.
Exactly. That's a problem. Definitely a problem. And also money it changes people. It really does ruin some people out there. I mean, I personally know people that have just been lost in money. It's sad. Robert Wiles again says he has a blessed soul. I hope he comes back soon. We need more like him in this world. We are stronger together than divided. Have a blessed night, everyone. Thank you, Robert. I agree. This has been great. I feel like we could have just kept talking about any one of the subjects. I was like, oh man, we really got to talk about New York too. We didn't even talk about New York really.
I know.
Just because, I mean, really, when you start talking about society as a whole, I mean, it's like you start talking about one cogwheel, right? And then you realize that it's 1,000 cogwheels, right? And there's 50% of them have issues. And you're like, to really fix this one cogwheel, you have to fix the 40 around them, and it's like, when you really try to fix I was just saying fix society. It's such a obscure thing of saying it, but it's like, that's kind of what we're doing, like what's wrong with society? We're talking about all these different things. It's pretty crazy.
Well, what is a society? What is a society comprised of? It's
Good
comprised of
point.
people. Who are people? People are complex individuals, and so as a result, any society is going to be complex and complicated. And
True.
one of the great things about reading, work by someone like a Thomas Sowell is that he really breaks it down quite beautifully.
Yeah, he does.
Just like in basic economics, you're talking about like all these interlocking processes. That's on the face of it, it seems like it can't make sense and it can't possibly work. But when you have a bunch of individuals who are working together to create the best outcomes for themselves, and just to exist in society, we have to cope with the existence of other people. We need to work also in the interest of other people as well. Like there's a give and take, and people are quite capable, I think, of working amongst themselves and for themselves, and that's kind of underestimated. But yeah, I mean, it's just too big. So whenever someone comes along and says, well, we have the solution, and again, a lot of this comes from, I mean, I guess you say left and right extremists, but when people rise to power and prominence and say, we have this solution for this issue, it's been one of the fundamental fallacies of this entire pandemic. And the response to it, I should say, is that, we, this small cluster of people, are going to decide for the rest of you, who have this specialized knowledge, are going to decide for the rest of you what the rest of you should be doing, regardless of your circumstances, your age, your histories, whatever, which they can't possibly know. And now they've turned your employers and the government into your medical advisors. So
yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's see. Mr. Knox says to Clifton, Duncan, do you think indie film is the way to go given where Hollywood films are going as of late?
Yes, we were talking about this before we got live, but I think the bubble is bursting. I think what it means to be famous has changed. I think the era of the movie star is over now, and I think that what's happening is that now that people they're going away from traditional or legacy TV. They're going away from movies, and they're retreating, so to speak, to video games. They're looking at podcasts. They're looking at live streams. They're looking at Twitch. They're looking at all these different platforms, which offer so many personalized experiences and so many niches that people can enjoy. True. And so I think what people like Tim is doing and like the Daily Wire are doing, Antonio Sabato Jr. is also doing this. People are beginning to release their own content, and what's happening. I mean, this is how Issa Rae, who wrote, I forgot what the show is called, but she got picked up by ABC. She started by doing a web series on YouTube, wow. And so I think that more and more people, especially as the technology improves, we can distribute this stuff much more effectively now. I was talking to a friend, an actor friend, earlier today. There's a series that she's watching, which is I can't remember the name of it, but it's based on the story of Jesus and the 12 apostles, but it's told from the disciples, the apostles' point of view, and apparently the production value is fantastic. The acting is really good. The writing apparently is also great. And it's garnering enough attention now where outlets like, mainstream outlets are having to review it because it's getting that much buzz and attention. Meanwhile, the industry itself tries to release something like Quibi and fails miserably. And or
what is that? I don't know what that is. What's Quibi?
Yeah, it's not surprising that you don't. So Apple released this. I think it was Apple that released this. No, somebody else. But there was a short-lived streaming service called Quibi, and the whole idea behind that was like releasing these like 10 or 15-minute episodes with some pretty big name actors. Just content that sort of is more relatable to how people use their phones. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to watch 10 to 15 minutes of content, then I'll just watch, some Thomas Sowell lecture or some interview or a clip from one of my favorite podcasts. I'm not going to watch this dramatic series. And so there were billions of dollars into it. And, even my own manager was like, yeah, this is a really buzzy platform. It's new and it's the new thing. They're really putting a lot of money behind this and promotion, and it failed. And it's just, it's another clue to me, especially when you see the viewership of, say, the most recent Oscar broadcast, where, the average PewDiePie upload gets more views than the Oscar broadcast did. And, that's people aren't talking about that, but that's a major, major thing. True. And so what that does is now I think it decentralizes the quote unquote entertainment industry. It decentralizes the culture and the cultural output, and it puts it back in the hands where it belongs, which is enterprising individuals and creative individuals who aren't worried about appeasing shareholders, and they're not worried about government regulations. They're just worried about telling good stuff. And I got some friends. We're having conversations too about what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And like I said, I have a very, very, very rich and prestigious training pedigree. I have a very good aesthetic, and so the more and more people like me began to really rise up and pool our resources and our collective talents together.
Yeah.
It's really going to start changing the game a whole lot more and undermining a system. I mean, the bubble's got to burst at some point.
I love it.
So that person is correct.
Indie films. Let's see. Robert Shaw says the hero's journey became the victim's struggle. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, good way of putting it. He continues, it's either remakes or never-ending sequels. Yeah.
Yeah, and people are tired of it. They're just tired of it. They want something that's,
dude,
satisfying.
Risk a new IP, please. Risk something new. Who knows, you might make the next Star Wars or Star Trek or Law and Order or any Sopranos. Like, you just design something new. Breaking Bad, all these like great shows from the past. I saw something today. Someone was posting on Instagram, like, I really missed The Office. Yeah, because it was, it was based off Ricky Gervais's The Office, but guess what Ricky Gervais does? He makes all these new things. Some of them suck. Some of them are like really bad and like they don't go anywhere. But then some of them are like The Office that are now this iconic show that everyone loves because he just keeps creating new stuff. I haven't watched Afterlife, but I hear it's actually really good. Everyone that's watched it seems to have really enjoyed it, and it makes me want to watch it. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I probably will. Robert Shaw says, I like strong women on South Park. Don't hate. Okay. All right.
Luck is for dudes.
Mark G says, I wish you weren't a bad man or crazy woman. Then drink Crigler coffee. The only coffee to make you sane and awake, not woke. I don't know if you've tried my coffee yet, but it's good. If I don't say so myself. It's good. Okay. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. Roasted on order. And, anyway, Mr. Wolfgram says 1 case in New Zealand and level 4 lockdown for the next day. At least it's only for 3 days. 1 case. I mean,
only for 3 days, gentlemen. They're saying it's only for 3 days, but
3 days to slow the spread.
Probably for longer.
Yeah. Khalid Cooper, thank you for that $20 super chat. Didn't even say anything. I appreciate you, mate. Robert Shaw says, who was Ghostbusters 2016 made for? I don't know. Even the females friends that watched it of mine, like, they thought it sucked.
This goes back to what we were talking about before, Adam. They're not making movies for the audience. They're making movies for themselves and their peers. They want to be accepted by their peers. They think they're doing the right thing, but they're not taking into account what the audience want. And the irony is that, and so I think it was comic book girl 19 or whatever her name is, the YouTuber. She brought up the point that actually it would have actually been progressive if you had a mixed gender team, and that would have been so fascinating to see. How they got along, how they bumped heads.
Yes.
But they didn't do that. They didn't do that, and they got the wrong person to direct the film.
Yep.
And but that's what happens. That's what happens.
It felt like a joke. That movie feels like they were like, let's make fun of all these like woke leftist progressives, until you realize that they're not trying to make fun of it. They're literally doing this as if this is what they wanted. They think that they made an awesome, serious film. Well, obviously it was a comedy-ish, but it was cringy. Like, the cringe that they added was like unnecessary, and they thought that they were being virtuous. Like, look how amazing this is. And
I have to say, when I first saw the trailer, it was hilarious because I literally screamed at my laptop at that moment where Leslie Jones is straddling Melissa McCarthy, and they're doing the whole Exorcist reference, which I'm like, dude, are we still doing references to The Exorcist right now?
Yeah.
But when Melissa McCarthy's character, her head twisted around, I said, she should be dead. I screamed, she should be dead. It was a real Ghostbusters movie because remember, the original was grounded in a reality.
Yeah,
that,
true.
People, someone would die if that happened to them. So that's when I was like, okay, well, this is if this were a farce or a parody of Ghostbusters that was released by the same team of people and marketed that way, it would have landed differently than it did. But
yeah,
I was like, oh my God, come on, guys. I was just like, what are you doing? This is not Ghostbusters.
It was bad. Let's
what
see.
do I know? Just a sexist neck beard.
Robert Shaw says, new Batman show, Batman dies first episode, Batwoman now. Oh my God, really? Is that serious? And they just made Robin gay too? Like after 20 years of being a heterosexual male, they've now decided he's gay.
Yeah, I mean, and it's tough because when you criticize these things, they automatically say, well, what do you obviously hate gay people, and
it's no.
No, it's that the people that are writing this, they hate Tim Drake, and they hate the Batman audience who's been loyal and I kind of want to say this before. I'll try to be brief about it, but there's this idea that fans are irrelevant, meaningless, and the fans are I mean, I was scrolling through and part of my post-work ritual now is like, I go and I've been watching these clips from like Justice League and DC cartoons.
Okay.
And I've been so astounded by the depth of some of the writing, but then when you scroll down to the comment section, it's very moving because people talk about how these stories inspire them. They talk about how these stories and these moments make them feel, and they're really, really deeply emotionally invested in these characters. And from the outside, you might say, "Oh, that's silly. Oh, you're a nerd." But it's like, dude, I don't come, I don't talk about your trashy reality TV shows and how those are trash and how you're invested in those, or you're really invested into cars or something like that. I don't go and talk about that. But these people are invested in these stories, and they have been so for a long time, and it's very, very serious to them, and they're smart. We're at a point now where the audience, it's almost like pro wrestling in a way. Like the audience has become smarter than the people that are making the movies collectively.
True. Yeah.
And they're poking holes. All these YouTube channels are popping up. They're poking holes in their writing. They're poking holes and exposing the flaws of what's going on. And they have better ideas than oftentimes a lot of these filmmakers do. Yeah. And I'm so amazed by it, and I'm moved by it, but I'm also enraged because these are the people that are being called neckbeards and virgins and racists and sexists. I'm like, dude, these people, if you listen to them, could fix your freaking movies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen some incredible fan-made stuff that is awesome, and it's really it goes beyond what we were talking about earlier about how the celebrity is kind of dying off. It's the same with the writers and the directors. It's like, it's coming to the point where we as audience members, we know when we're getting fed bullshit, really. We know what's good quality product or not. And we're starting to, it feels like you said, that bubble's popping. It feels like we're getting close. We're getting close. All right, let's see here. Shanjak says wokeism is cultural terrorism using shallow caricatures of virtue as a human shield. Well put.
Well, it goes back into the concept of art as a weapon.
Right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Robert Shaw says Joe Rogan's successful and bald, and so is Tim Pool. Okay. Thank you, Robert Shaw. You have to be redacted to work in construction. All right. Let's see. Francisco, right on time, 4:20 Pacific time. Pack your bombs, ladies and gents. Every show at 4:20. This person, Pacific time, which is 7:20. It's crazy.
Well,
let's see.
It's great though. I love that you have this kind of these people who are like, this is my thing. This is my ritual now. And
I love it. I love it.
That wasn't possible.
No joke. I love my chat. Someone made a joke about this the other day. They're like, Adam Crigler simps for his chat. It's like, you know what? You said it also though earlier. Your profession is about your audience. This is what I do. If my audience, if I didn't have some incredible people in my chat all the time, it wouldn't feel as yeah, what was the word? I'm making a difference. I feel like I research stuff and I come and like, look what I found. Look at the stuff that I'm researching. Look what's going on. And people are like, thank you. I'm getting a direct line to these people that are telling me like, thank you for doing this. It's like, that's my audience. Just like you said, if I was an actor, yeah, it's like, I'm trying to say so many different things because in the past, the actors were very carefully portrayed as these like famous, people on pedestals, right? And they were so disconnected. And it's something that we have now. We are so connected. Someone who is in the acting world, you have a direct line to people who, watch you and watch your stuff, and you can get feedback from them. And just like with those comics, those people that could fix the movies, because here's all the things they're all talking about. What's wrong with the movies? Hey, fix those. I bet all of the movies will be amazing. You and I both know these people get it. The audience is the most important part. If you're being on stage, I'm on stage every night, and my audience is the most important part of what I do, hands down.
And it goes back to like a basic kind of economic concept, which is, people say, oh, look at these powerful corporations, yada, yada. No, who has the real power? It's the consumer.
Yep.
The consumer controls the market.
Precisely.
So,
Yep. Boom. Let's see. It continues. Robert Shaw says the UK is being used as an example here. Okay. Robert Shaw says redacted class-based systems, another division. Yep, that's true. Andrew says new New York laws are medical extortion by definition. Interesting. That's a good way of putting it. I didn't really think about it. But yeah, it really is. You're cut off from society. You can't go buy food. You can't buy food anymore.
And it's so disingenuous because they say, well, no one's forcing you to take it. Right. Clearly they are. It's such a lie.
It's such a lie. It's crazy. Andrew continues, medical extortion and medical discrimination by definition. That's true. Robert Shaw says, my body, my choice crowd, where you at? Silence.
Yeah.
He's got a good point. Freddie Last, thank you for that little pear drinking coffee super sticker. That's cute. Robert Shaw says Yahtzees are socialists with a national twist. Yeah, I guess so. Austin says, hey, can I get my Estella Scrooge poster signed? Never seen it, but love the artist. Keep asking questions.
Very funny.
I will always keep asking questions. It's the most important thing we can do. Question everything. Mr. Paul R says, the more they suppress the truth, the more it will slip through their fingers. When will we hear lovely Nishra's voice in harmony? Thomas Sowell rocks. Yes, he does. Yes, he's a national treasure. I think he is. I think he's the greatest mind in America right now. Would you agree?
I mean, he's definitely up there. And it's funny.
Who else is up there? Who else
I love Victor Davis Hanson for one.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, if you don't know who Victor Davis Hanson is, you need to look him up. He is a historian, a classicist, a scholar, and he's also a farmer. So what he's able to do.
All right.
What he's able to do, I mean, he has this vast knowledge base and this vast intelligence, but he's able to break down very complex topics in everyday, straightforward language. And so he has the wisdom of someone who works with his hands, who works the land, but he's also, he works at Stanford and other universities, and, he writes articles. So he's an intellectual as well.
Yeah.
So, he's got a very unique perspective. I know that the trigonometry guys recently did a podcast with him. It's very much worth watching. Basically, any speech or lecture that you can watch. I mean, he really inspired me. He did a half-hour lecture video called "The Importance of the Classics: Why Study the Classics," and that really inspired me to do it. Just because there's so much we can learn from these older authors that we've forgotten.
Yeah,
right.
There's a reason they've it's timeless. It's a reason they've lasted as long as they have because, it's human beings. It's human nature, right? Who else? You were going to say one more person. You said Victor Davis Hanson and someone else you were going to bring up. Who was that?
No, I don't think I was, but I mean,
Oh, okay.
I'm a big fan of Tom Sowell, though.
So am I. All right, let's. Paul N says, Clifton, could a Stanford and Sons or Archie Bunker be possible in 2021? Obviously on cable.
Well, it's Sanford and Sons, but
I'm sorry, Sanford and Sons.
I don't think that maybe a Sanford and Sons might work, but I don't think it would be untainted by the ideology, the current zeitgeist. And as far as Archie Bunker, I mean, that would never work. I mean, the whole episode where like Sammy Davis Jr. comes up, and Carol O'Connor's character has to kind of deal with his own racism. I mean, they got a lot of comedy out of that, and I think I think it's a healthy kind of comedy that came out of it. But I don't see a culture right now in an industry where that kind of thing would be even greenlit, much less make it to our screens.
Like you were talking about Airplane. It's like half that movie would be like,
dude.
Whoa, are you offended? Are you offended? Are you offended? Everyone's offended, right? I'm just like, no one's offended.
That movie still works. I mean, I was telling you before, they screened it in Central Park a few years ago in the summertime, and there were hundreds of people there, and they were laughing at every single joke. I mean, there's a running joke where like these two black guys are speaking jive, and it would never be approved today. But but it's funny because there's a great payoff later on in the movie where this white woman is like, I speak jive. Y'all can hang loose, blood. I mean, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Good. But we can't laugh today.
Yep. Same with like Mel Brooks movies. It's like a black sheriff.
Yeah. Oh I mean, God.
Canceled.
It's edgy. It's dangerous, and everything is so safe and homogenized now within a specific socio-political framework, and it's just excuse me, I speak jive.
We gotta protect everyone.
Yeah.
Robert Shaw says you don't need treatments, just get redacted. It literally says redacted in brackets.
Hilarious.
How do you both feel about the music industry? You want to take this, Clifton? I've got a lot to say.
Well, I mean, I don't get as down about music because, I mean, my younger brother is an artist himself, and he's got albums out, and I think what's great about now is that there's so many avenues for distribution, and there's so many ways to find different artists, and I think a lot of people are doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah,
and I'm also given some encouragement by the fact that if I go to like. If I'm on, I like disco for some reason, and if I'm on this rabbit hole where I'm watching a bunch of disco videos, I scroll down to the comments, and you see a bunch of people who are commenting like, I'm 13, I'm 14, I'm 15, and I wish that our music today was as good as this music. So I think again, it speaks to this hunger that people have for something that means something and is great. And so there's a lot of great people that are doing some cool stuff, but it's just. In terms of, just like in Hollywood, the idea of what fame is or what a movie star is or what even a star is kind of changing. I think with music, at least from my observations, you may disagree, but I feel like, that there's so much that's so accessible now, and artists have ways of, garnering their own fans. And, there's a guy on YouTube who I think he books tours, but he plays rock covers of old video game music. I'm like, that's genius.
Cool.
I got to
it's good. I mean, look at Tom McDonald. He just at the beginning of 2020, he had 600,000 subscribers. Now he's got over 2 million. He's getting millions of hits on all of his songs. He quit the music industry, and to say about how society is adopting the internet, like just as we're finding movies that we want now, fan-made stuff, we're finding the musicians that are putting their own stuff out there that we really like, that they don't have to sell themselves to a music industry to get out there. They just put a good song on YouTube or whatever platform, an Instagram hit, and suddenly everyone's listening to it, and then boom, it's viral, and bam, you got good stuff. So, I feel like the music industry is being taken back in a sense. and I think it's awesome. You know, as a musician, you know, I'm gearing up to record my. I did an album in my 20s, but I don't really feel like it was like a real album. But I'm gearing up to actually do an album, and I feel so excited about it because I'm going to put it out myself. And I have an awesome audience who listens to my music on Fridays. You know, I jam out in my show, and it's just cool. I feel like we are taking things back. Music,
Yeah.
even politics. I think that people are. I think that's one of the best things that Donald Trump could have done was shine a light on the hypocrisies of, you know, it forced them to be as hypocritical as they have been, and most people are like, wow, like this is insane. So politics, movies, music, like everything, it feels like we're kind of getting back to normalcy in a sense. I don't know, there's a lot to break out there, but you know what I mean.
Well, there's definitely power. I mean, I call the internet the worst best thing and the best worst thing, and there's definitely downsides to it. But at the same time, I think there's some, like, I used to marvel in the earlier days of the Daily Show, and I would say, how can these politicians just keep lying? Don't they know Jon Stewart has a team of writers and who could just pull up what they said, you know? And I feel like the internet in a big way serves that same kind of function now, where we can say, wait a minute, we have the receipts, and also we can communicate with each other in a way that we couldn't before, and we can all see that, you know, I mean, I try to explain this to people without sounding like some kind of a crazy person, but there's different spheres of reality right now, and right now with the internet, we can see the mainstream kind of sphere and how that's going, but we can also compare notes with each other and with our experiences. And we have access to so much more information where we can challenge what's going on. And I mean, when we see what's happening, you know, that the CNNs and MSNBCs and New York Times of the world are losing their audiences, and you know, these other various podcasters, commentators, yada yada yada, these independent, you know, Substacks. I have a Substack myself. I mean, these
what
kinds
is
of
Substack? Actually, I don't even know what that is.
It's just it's a medium for writers. You can, you know, submit posts or, you know, blogs or articles or whatever it is that you do. I think there's probably even more. I think like a big story right now that's roiling the comic creator community is that a couple of big comics creators, excuse me, have been given deals by Substack. So I think, you know, that platform will continue to grow and be a great mode of expression for writers and people who and other maybe creative people who figure out a way to use the platform, maybe even to like develop work, or, you know, we'll see. But like I was saying before, and what you were talking about with the music industry, I mean, it's becoming more decentralized, and it's becoming more creator driven, and I love the fact that. I mean, I've thought about this for years, and now I got to, you know, kind of or get off the pot and start creating. But I love that, you know, we have the technology available now where fans and followers can say, hey, I like what this person does, and I'm gonna throw them a couple of bucks every month or just this one time, because I support what they do. You cut out the middle people. There's no commissions to pay. There's no lawyers involved. You know, you have to sign any contracts. It's just me, the creator, and the artist, and then the fans who say, hey, we appreciate what you do, and we're happy to compensate you for what you do. I think it's a beautiful system now.
Agreed. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Metastep says, I want to listen to every audiobook narrated by Clifton. Everyone have a blessed night. Ah, see, there you go. You always have that. You can do audiobooks.
Yes, sir.
Steven says, you need to have Clifton as a regular. On a scale from 1 to 10, how far away are we from Schindler's List? Oof, that's really extreme. But then again, look at where we are in the world. First and foremost, Clifton, you're always welcome back. Always. Anytime you want to come on, you just let me know.
Much appreciated.
How do you even answer that question? I don't know.
It's
6?
It's tough to say. Yeah, right.
6?
I think I tweeted about. I was like, you know, what stage is that? Like when the announcement came out about the police forces or is it the military in Australia being deployed to enforce these lockdown measures? And I'm like, isn't this like stage 5 or 6 or whatever on the the way to a genocide?
Yeah.
Where are we on this chart right now?
All right, so 5 to 6. All right, that sounds about right. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Robert Shaw says, "What does it mean to be black?"
I mean, it depends on what black person you ask, I suppose. I mean,
Right.
for a big proponent of the ideology of the left is that they ascribe, this idea of blackness, and black is this, black is blank. But then when you ask them what black is, they can't really describe it.
Right.
So, black is just what it means to be black.
It's voting for Biden.
Yes, it's being a Democrat. That's what it means.
That's the answer, obviously. Let's see. Black Magic says black people always seem to vote for bigger government, but they inherently distrust the government. I can't explain it rationally.
There is
I
no
actually
rational explanation.
there isn't. I just started following this account. She's hilarious. What's the name of her account? Hold on, I have to. Her name is The Sheep Hate This Account. That is.
Oh yeah, Sky Daddy. She's on
Sky
Instagram.
Daddy.
Sky Daddy.
Yes. That she is hilarious, and because she was literally just posted a video about this today about like, look, do you trust them? Oh, you don't. Okay. Do you trust Big Pharma? Oh, no, you don't. Oh, do you trust politicians? No. Okay. So then why are you instantly just like catering to them on all of these things that are going on right now? Can you explain that to me? And it's just kind of like, ooh, she got, who's got an answer to that? I mean,
yeah. I mean, and again, you're seeing again this the rise of more defiant people who don't check any boxes. I mean, I think.
Yep.
I mean, she calls herself Sky Daddy. I think she's kind of goofy with me. I mean, sorry, but she got them big. But I mean, she's a lesbian. But she's gay. But you know what I mean. But it's like, she doesn't fit in any of the boxes that she's supposed to fit into.
Right.
And we have access now to these kinds of people, and we can say, wait a minute, the world that we're presented on a daily basis is not reflective of the actual world, where actual people have they're comprised of a bunch of different kinds of opinions and motivations, and now we can see that and unfolding in real time, and it's great.
You mean not all black people are the same?
It's true.
Gosh. Dude, when Biden said that line, like, the Mexican community, unlike African Americans, is very culturally diverse. And it was like, what the heck does that mean?
I mean, what a moron. I mean, has he ever spoken? I mean, listen to the way that, like, for instance, like black Africans talk about black Americans. Black Africans do not like black Americans, generally speaking.
No,
and if
I don't know anything about this.
It's true. And then, even within this country, you have Nigerians who have their own culture and they're very prideful people. You have Jamaicans who have their own culture. They're very prideful people. Black Americans, if you grew up in Atlanta versus having grown up in like Vermont or whatever, or Connecticut, you're going to have a very different sort of, kind of cultural, I guess, milieu, if we want to go that far. I mean, there's a lot of, like we said before, there are some trends, definitely, but there's also just a lot of just individuals and people who are, just not along with they don't go along with the program, and yet it's very strange. Like it was said before, that they don't trust the government. I mean, I've literally had conversations with other black people who say black people need these programs, they need them, and I'm thinking to myself, like, well, we didn't need them before. Why do we need them now?
Right.
But that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down.
Yep. And honestly, the movie, the documentary Uncle Tom, it really goes into explain the beginning of how the Democrats basically convinced that crowd of the black community that they need it's really like the welfare state. It's like there was actually a healthy amount of, solid black families going up to that, even through slavery, that this is what they talk about in Uncle Tom. And it was like this whole welfare state, like, you need the government, you need this assistance. And then suddenly, they became dependent on, and instead of working for themselves to gain a prosperous family that you can pass on to your kids, and like they say, generational wealth, it can't exist. Well, not if you're dependent on the government and you never actually like rise up and, you know, defeat your own inner demons because you're just sucking on the internet or the government's tit, you know? It's crazy.
Yeah, but even the idea, and you're seeing this now, I think one of the big ironies of right now, and I've mentioned this before, it's like when I was a kid, it used to just be the poorer and more, you know, working class blacks who would say, you know, if you carry yourself a certain way, if you speak a certain way, if you turn in your homework on time, so on and so forth, then you're acting white. And now what you're seeing,
God.
and now what you are seeing is that from the top down, these elite bourgeois black people, from people like Nicole Hannah-Jones or Charles Blow of the New York Times, Ibram
Al
Kendi,
Sharpton.
Al Sharpton, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Toure, Melissa Harris Perry, Joy Reid. Now these are the kinds of people that are putting forth this idea that if you value punctuality, if you value individuality, if you value discipline and self-accountability, these are elements of whiteness and white culture. That's
crazy.
What's really insidious. I mean, there was that infamous poster from the Smithsonian Museum of African American Art that it generated so much backlash they ended up pulling it. But
that came out in the 90s, in 91.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, but that's how these people think. You know, anything that could be seen as adding success to your life is viewed as whiteness. Which this is why I've said for a long time, this progressivism, it is a white supremacist ideology.
Yeah.
It assumes that white people are so superior that they control everything, and that I have no say in what's going on, and that I just by default am inferior and can't make my own way. And again, I told you before, it's like, you know, I don't think you're superior to me. I don't care what you think about me. I don't spend my days obsessing over whether or not white people like me or not. And it's this quest.
Or anybody likes me.
Well, it's this quest for white validation and acceptance, and they can't see that that's actually what it is.
Right. They can't. Well, how do we get down that path? Yeah, you gotta come back on, man. I feel like we can rant all night. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's what Black Magic was saying. F-Stop Harlot says, we had a bunch of protests here too in California. There are more planned. I posted a bunch of photos and some videos in my Instagram page, BRC_images. Awesome. Hey, do me a favor and go to my locals page, adamcrigler.locals.com, and post some of the stuff up there so I can check it out. Robert Shaw says, what's a woman worth without a man? What's a man worth without a woman? If men are so useless, good luck having a future generation. Yep, good point. Derna 1804 says, the phrase Black Lives is a materialist trap. Christians are supposed to believe in a life created in the image of God. They can infiltrate anti-Christian ideas into Christian communities that way. Okay. Andrew says, if aliens are real and they wanted to kill all humans without them noticing or panicking, don't you think this whole pandemic and vax might be how? Maybe. I don't know. That's a conspiracy theory option. Robert Shaw says, Cuomo has pretty high body count. Pretty evil. Yeah, I can't stand that man. I think he's running with his tail tucked between his legs. Robert Shaw says, the great mastermind behind all of this is Tim Pool. Nah. I don't think so. He's too... Nah, I'm not going to say anything. Name withheld says, Mr. Duncan, you are so eloquent and smart. Listening to you gives peace to my soul. God bless.
Wow, well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Right on. Robert Shaw says, deadly diseases create their own propaganda. Acting class teaches correct drug use too. Is that what? Okay.
What is he talking about?
I don't know. Random, but okay. Robert Shaw says, longest stream? Yes, I have been going for, this is, you know what? Whatever. My streams are, they end when they end. Usually I do about an hour. So. Oh,
wow.
Yeah, usually I do about 30 minutes to 45 minutes of the segments, and then I read super chats for sometimes it goes to about an hour and a half. So, I mean, whatever. We're over 2 hours. Not even a big deal because, you can't stop good conversation. And I feel like we've been hitting a lot of nails on the head for a bunch of different subjects that people are uncomfortable to talk about, I feel, and they shouldn't be uncomfortable to talk about. People should be having these kind of conversations. So it was great to have you on, Clifton. Seriously.
I appreciate it, man. It's been a good time.
Let's see here. I had a super chat jump. Thank you guys so much. Tom Diaz says, Thomas Sowell says, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs.
Trade-offs, yes.
Yep, yeah. Exactly. Robert Shaw, can you believe that guy is 90 and he's still going strong?
He's still writing stuff, man.
Dude,
it's amazing.
Dude's amazing. Robert Shaw says, PewDiePie is a sexy man. Okay. Matthew Hammond says, I love Clifton. I hope Zuby and him get to meet up while he is in the US. Yeah, Zuby's great too. I want to get him on my show. We were supposed to do a show, but timing wise, it didn't work out because it's so late for him where he lives normally.
Yeah, but he's in the US now, so that should be easier to match up.
That's a good point. I should hit him up and be like, dude, do my show. Let's do this.
Yeah, man, he's a cool dude.
Yeah, he is. Robert Shaw says, Robin in those tights, I don't know, fits the stereotype. Yeah, nah, I'm not feeling it. No one forcing you to live, so yeah. Remember, he will not divide us. I remember. Yeah, thanks, Robert Shaw. Zarink says, incredible bit from Justice League series was the Question's desire to stop Lex Luthor from becoming president and being told how he'd be powerless as president. Some were like the Question re-Trump. I actually haven't seen any of that, so I don't even know who the Question is. Unfortunately, sorry. Do you know what they're referring to?
Yeah, it's a character. I want to say it was created by I want to say it's one of a Jack Kirby creation. I mean, I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but it's definitely an old character. I haven't read his comics, but it looks like a very interesting character. I have to check that scene out if I can find it.
Right on. Robert Shaw says, Internet Historian is an amazing YouTube channel. I think I've seen some of this stuff before. Robert Shaw says, it's the hood because they can't spell neighbor. Yeah, maybe. Matt Cruz says, watch Chris DiStefano's podcast with Mrs. Pat, or Miss Pat. Fat was hilarious and totally politically incorrect. I discovered Chris on A. Schultz and Miss Pat on Joe Rogan. Okay, I'll check them out.
Yeah, I hear she's very funny.
Sejong says, something Clifton said inspired me in your locals. All right, I'll check it out after the show. Right on. Yeah, I really like locals too. It's a great way to interact with my community because it's a little smaller. Like my Twitter account is kind of crazy. I get mentions, but people are like, I tagged you on Twitter. And I'm like, yeah.
Didn't see it. Sorry.
I didn't see it. Jeremy says, hey, Adam, I met you at the Philly Walkaway rally. Do you see yourself coming back to Philly anytime soon? No, probably not. I grew up in Philly. I really liked Philadelphia. It's a beautiful place, but I probably won't be back in Philly. But thank you. I hope you came up and said, I think you did. A bunch of people were coming up and saying hello to me. It was really cool to meet some fans in person. Oh, wow. Excuse me. I be ripping them. It's been a while since I've seen you in Super Chats. Good to see you, mate. Says, I was fined $50 for farting without my papers. Wow. That is a shame, my friend. That is a shame. Good to see you. Mark Robershaw says, wait, who is this Tim Pool guy? I don't know. Some guy I used to do a show with. Mr. Knox says, we need to be comfortable talking about anything, especially the taboo topics. But true. With the current situation, we are forced to stay quiet. Absolutely, Mr. Knox. We have to be able to talk about it. How can we learn what is wrong speak, right? Or hate speech or what history is? How can we learn from history if we're not allowed to talk about it? If we're not allowed to shine a light on things. I say shame the people that think that like the actual racists out there, they should be shamed. They should be publicly made aware. Look, that person right there, that attitude, that's terrible. Boom. Let's not teach people that people are inherently like that person because that is just absolutely bonkers. Listen, Clifton, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for joining me, man. I really do appreciate you.
Hey, man. Thanks, Adam, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Definitely, definitely. All right. Well, we will be back. Well, I will be back tomorrow here on the Crigler Show. Same time as always, 6:30 Eastern time. And maybe Clifton will be back one day. I hope so. So you guys all have a wonderful night, and I will see you all next time.